Tell me about the two bills you introduced today.
Well, first, House Bill 5920, I've been working on for a good 2 years or so, um, and it would prohibit or restrict the use of smart devices in K through 12 public schools, and it would be different restrictions. K through 5, simply no devices during the school hour once the bell rings and until the school day has ended. 6, 7, and 8, you can use them before school and after school. 9 through 12, um, not prohibited during instruction time. You can use them in the hallways, between classes, the lunchroom, and after school.
Does the bill lay out how it would work in terms of, are we thinking that we can trust eighth graders to put their phones away during school time and just zip them up in their backpacks and that they won't sneak them out to get on TikTok or social media,
Yeah.
social media?
Well, that hide and seek game between the students and the teachers is a big issue. And there are a number of ways to resolve that. I was at Traverse City West High School, and they have a phone caddy system, and each pouch, it's like one of those bags you hang off the back of your closet and you put shoes in. Each pouch is numbered. Each student is assigned a number on that pouch, and that's how they take attendance. Or you simply turn a card around that indicates you don't have a phone, but you're there. Avondale Middle School had a complete ban on smart devices last year, and they used a magnetic pouch system. The phone is turned off, put inside the pouch, it's locked magnetically. At the end of the school day, as you were leaving, you pass it through the magnet again and unlocks. You can take the phone out. There are any number of kinds of systems that are out there, but you're right. Oh, just keep it in your backpack, or then you have that cat and mouse between the teacher and the students trying to hide the use of their phones. But in the bill itself, that methodology is not necessarily spelled out. The school systems are also given leeway to be more restrictive if they would like. But there are a number of technologies out there. There are about 27 school districts in Michigan that have already had some kind of pilot program or more comprehensive program in place. And believe me, I have the privilege of attending a legislative breakfast with the Oakland County superintendents on a monthly basis, and the education community is aware of how to deal with this and what some of the most effective methods have been.
Have you had a chance to talk to parents? And what do a lot of parents that maybe you've heard from, what do they think about the introduction of these bills?
The My parental exposure has been anecdotal. But what you read is when you initiate these programs, or when you listen to like the school superintendent at Avondale, uh, 1/3 of the students at Avondale schools are Rochester Hills residents. Like I say, they initiated a complete ban in the middle school last year, and one of the initial concerns parents have is, what if I need to get a hold of my child in an emergency? I completely understand that. I can empathize and feel for that desire. But when you take a step or two back, it's really a very dangerous and, quite frankly, selfish desire on the part of parents. If there is an actual emergency, you want your child focused on the trained adult at the front of the classroom. If there is an active shooter wandering the halls, and many schools now have hardened, lockable classroom doors. You don't want cell phone ringers going off behind a locked door. Bullets go through doors. Bullets can go through some walls. Last but not least, you don't want hundreds of parents arriving at the school in their cars while first responders are trying to get there. And if you look at the Oxford school situation, the 911 system was completely overloaded, completely flooded. And that doesn't do anyone any good. So it really, in the case of an actual emergency, phoning your child is one of the worst options that you could execute.
So what happens now? You introduce these two bills. Now what?
Well, the next step would be to have the cell phone bill is assigned to Education Committee. So it would be having the chair of that committee, um, establish a time for a committee hearing. There are very few session days between now and the election. Nothing is going to happen. Depending on the outcome of the election, the lame duck session could be very wild indeed, with maybe all of the leftover desires, bills being run through. So I doubt that anything is going to happen in this session. But there's an accompanying bill with this 5920, which would prohibit minors from consenting to online terms of use agreements, which are essentially contracts. We don't allow minors to enter into contracts or to consent to contracts without parental approval, or the parent actually entering into the contract. So, the U.S. Surgeon General has told us multiple times this is a health issue. Dr. Jonathan Haidt out of NYU has been studying this and writing about it for 6 years. He tells us we're in the 12th year of a mental health crisis, particularly among our tweens and teen girls.
And what made you want to introduce these bills?
Well, the state has a $20 billion interest in K through 12 public education. It's a significant part of our entire budget, our entire state's budget. We're scoring very poorly right now in math and reading relative to proficiency at grade level. I think we rank 44th in the nation in graduation rates. There's a lot of room for improvement. We do not need optional and potentially mental health harming technologies and distractions in our schools during instruction time. We need to wind this back, refocus on what's really important and what is best for our students, and move on with uninterrupted instruction time, minimally.
I wanted to ask you about the part of the bill, you kind of touched on it there, where children should not have access to social media without the consent of their parent, and they have to be a certain age. Is that not the way it already is? Don't you have to fill in your age? And I'm not sure about the parental consent
Mhm.
portion. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, right now it depends. It depends on the application. Some 13 and 14-year-olds can apply. There is no third-party age verification. So you fill it out however you want, and you're on. If you ever tried to read the terms of use agreements, you'll see they are flat out contracts. You agree to allow us to use X information we collect. We agree to allow you to use our platform. We don't allow minors, anyone under the age of 18, unless they're an emancipated minor, to enter into contracts. And what this would simply do is, with third-party age verification, it would require parent or legal guardian to agree to that contract. Um, It gives the parent or legal guardian all login and password information, notifies them if there's an attempt to change that information. It allows the parent or guardian to see all posts, messages, and replies. It's unavailable to the minor between 10:30 p.m. and 6:30 a.m. There was quite a sizable study where software was put on the smart devices of the cooperating teens in the studies. Half of the children were online between the hours of midnight and 5 a.m. So
Wow.
yeah, so this is a sleep problem. It's a mental health problem. It's a self-esteem problem. As exposure, and one study estimated that the average teen has 9 hours of screen time. That does not include instructional time or television. Um, uh, as exposure to social media has increased, loneliness, depression, self-harm, suicide ideation, and suicide attempts, actual hospitalizations after suicide attempts, not self-reporting. They've all gone through the roof, and the teen and tween girls have been hit the hardest.
Just in closing, Mark, anything else you want to say just to button up what we've talked about? Any message to our viewers about these two bills that you're proposing?
I would just like to emphasize that the state has a huge interest, a $20 billion interest, and actually $20.5 billion this year, in what goes on in our public schools. And since 2018 to 2019, there are easily a dozen studies now that show not a correlation, but a causation in the mental health deterioration associated with uh, increased uh, social media site exposure. The technology executives, um, Steve Jobs didn't allow his kids to use iPods or iPads, rather. Um, the head of TikTok, Instagram, uh, you go down the list, they don't allow their children access, or they severely limit it to 1 to 90 minutes a month. So if the cooks aren't willing to eat their own cooking, I think there's a message there.
Absolutely. All right, great. I think you've just about covered it. I really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing how this goes. I have a 5-year-old, and I think about this every day. He started kindergarten, and
Yeah.
he already
Yeah.
knows so much about the iPad and phone, and it's
I
scary.
was I was flabbergasted to hear that elementary school students are showing up with devices.
Mhm.
And you think of the Oxford shooter, for example. He's sitting in class, browsing the internet for ammunition. Now, I don't care what you're browsing for. You shouldn't be doing that in class to begin with.
Sure.
But it's just there simply is no need for it, no room for it. When we're 41st in reading and math, 41st in 44th in high school graduation rates. Let's are we serious about education, or aren't we? And if this upsets some 14-year-olds or makes some parents mad because they can't exercise poor judgment during an emergency, so be it. And if I have to be the bad guy, if 14-year-olds don't like me anymore, if this passes, that's just something I'll have to learn to live with, Kimberly.